Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, well, we're doing something a bit different. We're stepping away from the usual analysis and diving headfirst into 17th century England.
Sounds intriguing, not our usual territory.
Exactly, because every year around early November, we hear that famous rhyme, right? Remember, the 5th of November, gunpowder, treason, and plot.
Guy Fawkes, blowing up Parliament, the whole story. We all know it.
We think we do. But what if I told you that behind the fireworks and the historical drama, there's actually a really vital lesson for today, so specifically for things like anti-money laundering AML compliance.
Okay, now you've got my attention. How does treason from 1605 connect to modern financial regulation?
That's exactly what we're exploring today. We want to uncover how the Gunpowder Plot, maybe surprisingly, gives us a framework for understanding risk, especially in professional services.
And where are we drawing this connection from?
Our deep dive today is based entirely on a really insightful piece by the law firm Alexander Christian, their solicitors based in London.
Alexander Christian, yes.
You can find their original post on their website. That's www.alexanderchristian.co.uk. They laid out this fascinating argument.
What's his?
It boils down to a kind of paradox. The biggest risks, the source suggests, often don't emerge from some obvious, shady outsider. Instead, they come from within networks built on what they call comfortable familiarity.
Right, comfortable familiarity. That resonates immediately. Because when we think about risk and compliance, our minds often jump to the unknown, don't they?
The stranger, the anomaly, yeah.
But the gunpowder plotters, they were the exact opposite of anomalies. These weren't outsiders banging on the door.
No. Who were they then in that context?
Well, they were men of considerable social capital. They had status, education, property, land, influence.
So establishment figures, in a way.
Absolutely. They moved easily within the existing structures of society. Think about it. These are precisely the kind of individuals that a reputable firm back then, or even now, might readily accept based on their lineage, their connection.
Because they looked right. Their profile was their camouflage.
That's perfectly put. They were trusted, not because they'd proven themselves trustworthy through actions necessarily, but because their appearance, their background, suggested they were trustworthy.
And that's how the conspiracy itself managed to grow.
Exactly. It wasn't shouted from the rooftops. It spread through, quiet conversations, private introductions between trusted friends or relatives. There was this mutual reassurance that came from being part of the same circle.
Leveraging the network.
Precisely. Using that very familiarity to hide what they were actually planning. And that right there is the first big AML lesson we can pull from 1605, according to the analysis.
Which is?
That our biggest blind spot, even in today's sophisticated systems, can be the automatic trust we place in someone simply because they're known to us or known to someone we already trust.
Yeah.
That whole network was built on assumed trust, on comfortable familiarity.
Okay, let's bring that forward to today. For professionals listening, lawyers, bankers, accountants, this must feel quite close to home.
Oh, definitely.
The source material talks about this natural inclination we have in professional circles. You trust people you know, or people introduced by someone you know.
It's human nature, and it's also how business often gets done, isn't it? Relationship-led business.
Right. And when you get that referral from a respected colleague or maybe a long-standing partner in the firm, well, your guard drops a bit, doesn't it?
It does. Subtly, perhaps unconsciously. There's this immediate warmth, maybe a desire not to cause friction, not to offend the person who made the introduction. You almost want the new client to be legitimate because your trusted contact vouched for them.
Confirmation bias kicks in.
Absolutely. And think about how the scrutiny softens in practice. A potential client is introduced at some high-profile industry dinner. Their funds get described in fairly vague terms, maybe old family money or long-standing business interests, property, usually.
Family money.
That's a classic one. It immediately sounds safe, clean, established, requires less digging, perhaps. That's the assumption it encourages. These phrases become shortcuts. They allow assumptions to rush in and fill the space where really proper verification should be sitting.
So you might still ask questions, but maybe more gently. You don't push quite as hard for the actual bank statements or the source of wealth documentation because, well, it feels a bit awkward, socially uncomfortable.
The questions become more like conversation starters than genuine investigation. And that leads us right to the core principle the Alexander Christian analysis hammers home.
Which is crucial.
Trust is not due diligence.
Say that again?
Trust is not due diligence. And familiarity is not a risk assessment. You simply cannot substitute that warm, comfortable feeling of knowing someone or knowing someone who knows them for robust evidence-based checks.
That distinction feels incredibly important. It reframes how we should even think about identifying risk. We often expect it to be loud, obvious.
Desperate, maybe, accompanied by flashing alerts on a screen.
Yeah. But the reality, both historically and now, is often quite different.
It is. Risk, as the source points out, often arrives looking, quote, polite, articulate, well-presented, and socially integrated.
Just like the plotters.
Just like the plotters. They use their shared identity, their reputations, as a shield. And today, you see incredibly complex financial crimes involving shell companies, layers of transactions being orchestrated by people who fit seamlessly into the professional world. They look the part.
It makes you realize why professional services firms are maybe uniquely vulnerable here.
How so?
Well, you said it earlier, relationship-led business, it's their strength, it builds trust and loyalty, but it's also the very thing that opens the door to this kind of familiarity bias. You can't just switch off the human element.
You can't. And that's the tightrope firms have to walk,
Mm.
which means we need to reset our mental picture of what a red flag actually looks like.
It's not always a literal flag, is it?
Rarely. Often, the thing hiding the risk looks like a trusted name on an email introduction, or a warm referral from a senior partner. A familiar accent, maybe, or just a quiet professional assurance that, don't worry, everything's perfectly in order.
And we feel reassured and we stop digging.
Exactly. That's the moment the danger creeps in. This is where we need to cultivate what's called professional skepticism.
Okay, let's define that. Because it sounds a bit negative, maybe.
It's easily misunderstood. It's absolutely not cynicism. It isn't about assuming everyone who walks through the door is trying to pull a fast one.
Right.
It's simpler than that. It's the ability, the discipline really, to just pause, to step back from the relationship aspect for a moment and verify the facts. To check that the story you're being told actually matches the evidence, regardless of who introduced the client or how comfortable you feel socially.
Verification, evidence. Which interestingly brings us back to 1605 again, because this whole elaborate familiar conspiracy, how was it actually stopped?
Yeah, it wasn't some huge intelligence coup, was it? No mass surveillance cracked the case.
No. The source reminds us it came down to one single act, an anonymous letter.
That's right, a letter sent to Lord Monteagle, warning him not to attend Parliament. It didn't spell everything out, but it raised enough doubt. It prompted investigation.
One signal. That was enough.
One signal of concern from someone presumably on the inside or close to it was enough to avert disaster.
And that act of disclosure, it has a very direct parallel in modern compliance, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. It's the Suspicious Activity Report, the SAR.
The SAR, okay.
Culturally, you could see the SAR as today's professional letter of concern. It's the mechanism for signaling that something doesn't quite add up, so that it needs a closer look by the authorities, even if you can't pinpoint exactly what's wrong.
We should probably pause on that for a second. The cultural aspect of the SAR, especially in these relationship-heavy fields.
It's critical.
Because filing a SAR, it takes real professional courage, doesn't it? Particularly if the suspicion involves someone well-connected, maybe introduced by a very senior figure in your own organization.
Immense courage. There's pressure, perceived or real, not to rock the boat, not to jeopardize a relationship or a lucrative client.
But the lesson here is...
The lesson is that reporting isn't an accusation. It's not pointing a finger definitively. It's a safeguard. It's fulfilling a professional and legal duty.
A duty to signal doubt.
Exactly. Having the courage to raise that flag, even when it feels awkward, even when it involves people within your trusted professional circle, that's absolutely vital. It's what prevents harm, financial crime, yes, but also huge reputational damage to the firm itself.
So the overarching lesson seems clear. Risk can absolutely hide within the familiar. It can sit right there in your most comfortable professional relationships.
That's the core insight from the analysis, yes.
Okay, so if that's the diagnosis, what's the prescription? What are the practical things that professionals, that firms need to do right now? How do you balance running a successful relationship-driven business with this necessary forensic skepticism?
Well, the most powerful control isn't actually a piece of technology or a complex procedure, although those matter.
No. What is it then?
It's the culture within the firm. The analysis calls for a culture that supports confident, courteous challenge.
Confident, courteous challenge. I like that phrasing.
It means creating an environment where everyone, from the most junior person right up to senior compliance officers, feels empowered and expected to ask probing, evidence-based questions. and to do so without fearing professional backlash or social awkwardness.
Okay, but let's get practical. Imagine a junior compliance analyst. A big billing senior partner walks in, introduces a new client, mentions family money. How does that junior person realistically push back and demand, say, 5 years of detailed bank statements and proof of the original source of that wealth without causing a massive internal conflict?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the answer is, it has to come from the top. Leadership must unequivocally communicate that compliance standards, that getting the evidence, actually trumps immediate profit or relationship comfort.
Tone from the top is key.
Essential. And that culture needs concrete support structures, things that make challenging the familiar not just possible, but standard procedure.
Like what specifically?
Like, first off, really robust onboarding frameworks. Procedures that are absolutely grounded in documented evidence, not just assumptions or verbal assurances.
Evidence, not stories.
Exactly. Firms need very clear, documented methodologies for verifying both source of funds, SOF, and source of wealth, SOW.
Can you quickly clarify those for our listeners? SOF and SOW.
Sure. Source of wealth, SOW, is about understanding the origin of the client's total wealth.
Yeah.
How did they accumulate it? Was it selling a business, inheritance, career earnings, investments? You need the story and the proof.
Got it.
Yeah.
SOF.
Source of funds, SOF, is more specific to the transaction you're handling right now. Where are the actual funds for this deal coming from? Which bank account? How did it get into that account? Again, you need the documentation tracing that specific money trail, not just it came from their savings.
So the paper trail has to replace the handshake, essentially.
In essence, yes. The trust comes after the verification, not before it. And your training needs to reflect this depth too.
How so?
Training has to go beyond just ticking boxes on procedures. It needs to genuinely strengthen professional judgment, critical thinking skills,
Yep.
teach staff how to spot inconsistencies, how to recognize when the story sounds good, but the documents don't quite back it up.
Training people to think like investigators, not just administrators.
Precisely.
Mm.
And finally, you need to test these systems. The source mentions the value of independent Regulation 21 reviews.
Reg 21. That's a UK-specific thing, mostly.
Primarily, yes. It mandates an independent audit of a firm's AML policies, controls, and procedures. Crucially, it should test not just whether the systems exist on paper, but whether the culture actually allows them to function effectively. Do people feel safe raising concerns about well-connected clients?
So it tests the system and the culture.
Yes. These aren't just administrative hoops to jump through. They are fundamental safeguards for the firm's integrity.
That really ties it all together. The lesson from history, from the Gunpowder Plot via Alexander Christian's analysis, is stark. The biggest dangers can indeed come from inside our trusted circles, masked by that comfortable familiarity.
It's a sobering thought, but a necessary one.
And the powerful conclusion from the source material is that implementing these robust checks, fostering this culture of confident challenge, isn't about becoming mistrustful. It's about ensuring your firm remains genuinely trusted, known for its integrity and diligence, rather than simply being trusting, naive, and potentially complicit.
Trusted, not just trusting. That's a vital distinction.
So, the final thought we want to leave you with today is this. Take a moment to consider your own professional networks. What assumptions are you making based on familiarity? Are those comfortable feelings backed up by hard evidence, or just habit? The lesson from 1605, strange as it sounds, is to always pause, always verify, especially when everything seems perfectly, comfortably in order.
Wise words. History has more to teach us than we often realize.
It certainly does. That's all for this deep dive. We hope this look back at gunpowder, treason, and plot has given you a fresh and maybe urgent perspective on modern compliance. We'll catch you on the next one.